Welcome to Script Cover, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I am Adrian Fort, and we are here for day 8 of the 12 days of Litmas. And today's question, prompt, theme, whatever you want to call it, is a literary idea or something that really stuck in my craw from this year. And for me, I'm going to go with a literary theme or idea. I'm not sure exactly what to call it, a philosophy, perhaps, which I've mentioned a couple times on the channel, and I will mention many more times into the new year, and that is the idea of hauntology. This comes to us, as do many things that confound me, from the mind of Jacques Derrida. And hauntology is derived from the words haunt and ontology. Ontology being the nature of being, and the combination of these two words is to invoke and suggest that the nature of being is not fully existing in the present, but always being the cumulation of things which have occurred and the potentiality of all those things yet to be. Much like when I'm speaking, any of the individual words that I'm using, for example, doesn't mean much beyond itself. It communicates only what the word itself communicates. But it means much more than that when you have heard the words previous to the word being employed or deployed. I don't know how I'm using those words anymore. But when I use that word using, your knowledge of all of the words I've already used, in addition to understanding where the conversation has been and forecasting where it might go, that is the nature of being. It is to constantly haunt between both the past and the future and never really being. This is also, Derrida was French, and the H in French would be silent. So hauntology and ontology would have the same pronunciation. And this is just one of those little cheeky things that someone like Derrida does to throw a little wrench in there to further prove a point. And his point there was that we favor speech over writing. And that little thing exploited it, because in the language he was speaking, you could not tell if he was talking about ontology or hauntology unless it was written down. Mark Fisher was a philosopher who took this further by applying it as philosophy and seeing how our culture has lost a sense of wonder towards what the future might hold. Blaming this on the constant turnover and sort of need for immediate results. Think of politicians, what politicians used to say. So the idea, JFK, for example, promised we would go to the moon. What do politicians today promise? Only things which may or may not pop up between here and when they're trying to get elected next. No one really thinks outside the box to promise things such as that. They might go so far as to promise that a budget will be balanced, but then they never touch the budget. They just make things worse. But that is sort of playing into the sense of what the phrase was born that the future has been canceled, right? And that is sort of along those same lines. A politician promising that we will go to the moon before the decade is out is much different than the promises you get from politicians today. And that's just politics. Think of... so another thing that happens with this is Fisher put forth the idea that we are in a constant cultural loop in which fads will cycle. So without having that long-term vision of what the future might be, of what would be possible to create, fads come back up. Think of all of the retro 80s stuff that is oh so cool and in right now. Well, before that, when I was in grade school, well, now it's the 90s that's real in, isn't it? It's the 90s that's real cool. We just got done with the 80s that were real cool. And when I was in school, it was the 70s. I remember my mother laughing at the television at the prospect that bell-bottom jeans might come back. She thought it was ridiculous. But everything is cycling back through. Why? Because we have no clear distinction of the future. We are constantly recycling those ideas from the past. And this idea that the future has been canceled is something that I think is fun to play with in writing. And I'm sort of starting to employ the idea, as far as literary interpretation is concerned. I got into it a little bit with our review of Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House. And I really got into it a little bit with We Have Always Lived in the Castle, but that, again, we lost all that work. But that is it for today, day 8 of the 12 days of Litmas, and I hope to see you tomorrow for day 9, in which we will brag a little bit and thank our community.